Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. For the past several years, since I've been doing this podcast, one of the things that I do a lot is I go after the debunkers, the non-believers, the people for some reason who seem to be very interested in this subject, and but all they seem to be interested in is trying to tell us, the people who know that there's something here, that we're all crazy and that there's nothing to it. And of course, I use their words against them. I call them stupid. I call them dummies. I call them dum-dums. I call them imbeciles. And so on and so forth. It's really a bunch of childish nonsense, actually. I mean, one of the only reasons I believe that that was a proper course was because for all these decades, I mean, that's how they made out people within the UFO community, people who experienced these things, people who have encounters with UFOs or the pilots. They try to make fools out of them. They try to tell them that what they experienced wasn't what they really experienced. It was something else. It was a hallucination, or you were drunk, or you're lying, or it was the planet Venus, or just in the previous podcast. I had Malcolm Robinson on here, a longtime UFO investigator from Scotland, and we talked a lot about the 1979 Deckmont Woods incident involving a man named Robert Taylor, who's now passed on. But he came, he's walking with his dog in the woods in Scotland and Deckmont Woods, and the next thing you know, he comes across this hovering craft in a clearing, and out comes these two spiked balls, and these spiked balls roll toward him, and they attach themselves to his clothes. Next thing he knows, he passes out, and when he wakes up, the thing's gone. But his clothes are all torn up, and the guy's beat up and disheveled and delirious somewhat, and there were marks left in the ground that showed that something was there, but there was no marks. Nothing was leading to this spot in the clearing later on when the police investigated, but they found the marks in the ground. I mean, basically, there was something from another world, or who knows, but wherever they're from, we don't know. I think they're from other worlds. I think they're extraterrestrial, but that remains to be seen. We don't know exactly where they're coming from. Some people say they were here all the time. I don't know if I believe that, but whatever the case, there's something here. There's a non-human intelligence with us, and that case there is one of those cases that informs us that there is most certainly something here. I mean, when you take that case and you pile it in with a whole bunch of other cases, the Betty and Barney Hill case, the Travis Walton, the Pascagoula, Mississippi case, the Ariel School incident, the Turkey UFO videos, and so on and so forth, right? The Vegas alien case, which I've been talking about, which actually for the past almost a year now, strongly been talking about for the past year, which shows us unquestionably that there's something here. That gives us the absolute proof. I mean, that case there had more things than all these other cases. But a lot of these cases, they came with evidence of their own, like the Lonnie Zamora case from 1964 in New Mexico. I mean, there was evidence, there was physical trace evidence there. I mean, there's no question that these things are happening, but yet we have all these people all the time trying to tell us that, oh, no, there's an explanation for it. There's some prosaic explanation for it, so don't worry about it. It's all crazy. If you think that that's real, then you're nuts. Alien abduction, all that stuff is crazy. And these people they're lying to themselves along with lying to everybody else. That's what's the bottom line here is. The government is lying to us all the time. They continue to lie to us. I mean, now, of course, we had that announcement earlier this week with Anna Paulina Luna, the congressperson, who talking about a task force. We're going to try to get records out to the public, try to show us things that have been kept from us for all these years, including UFO files. And that's all fine and dandy, and it's nice that the people in Congress keep talking about this subject, right? We need to get the truth out to the people. But the bottom line is you don't even need it. We really don't need anything anymore. We don't even need, I mean, the government is holding on to stuff, right? And I would like them to finally tell the truth, but the bottom line is we don't really need it. The scientific community doesn't even need it anymore. I mean, we know there's something here. I mean, you're just kidding yourself if you think otherwise. You really are. And anymore, I think the way to deal with the debunkers and the non-believers is just to patronize them. When they tell you that they don't believe this, or you're wrong, that's not really the case, or the Vegas alien case doesn't prove anything, you just, okay, whatever it takes. Anymore, my response is, if that's what you want to believe, that's okay. It's okay. If you want to believe that these things aren't really here and there's nothing to it, that's fine. Go ahead. It's okay. It's okay. And just leave it at that. That's probably the best way to handle this going forward. There's no reason to argue or debate with these people anymore. I mean, the government's lying. It's obvious. People in the scientific community have to see this. People who are smart, who are intelligent, should see this. I see some people, like like Eric Weinstein, he doesn't know for sure, stuff like that. I mean, I think he's actually dumb then. If he doesn't know, right, then he's stupid, right? Or he's lying. It's like I've talked about before. Either these people are stupid or lying. There's just a lot of people out there, supposed smart people, right, who they're not sure, they haven't seen enough yet. Well, then you haven't really researched it enough then. And you're just kidding yourself along with everybody else out there. But the bottom line is there's something here. We're not alone. There's no question about it. I've encountered one of the beings myself, and I saw one of the craft, right, along with another witness. I've talked about this millions of times. I don't know. Well, that's exaggerating. Dozens and dozens of times. Let's just say that over the past 4 years. I know for a fact we've presented all the proof. Obviously, not only is there something here, there's been crash retrievals. There's just no doubt about it. And there's some people, former government, some people within the government right now. They seem like they're engaging in this slow disclosure, and there's pushback against that by people in the control group, which is probably mostly comprised of people from the defense community, right? Defense manufacturers. That's what it is. But we all know it's here. We need to recognize this. The world, despite the fact that some government leader hasn't stepped up to the podium yet to tell the truth, doesn't mean anything. It shouldn't mean anything at this point. There's enough stuff out there now that if you don't see this, then there's something wrong, right? You're failing the intelligence test. I mean, if you're interested in this, right? If you're really interested in this, like for instance, if you're a non-believer who constantly follows the debunkers online to see what they're saying next, right? Then what does that tell you? Why would you do that? Like, I don't follow the flat Earth community, the people out there who believe the Earth is flat. I don't follow those people. It wouldn't make any sense to me. Like, why would I even care what those people think? See, the thing is the people, the non-believers in this UFO community, that's for some reason they want to be attached to the UFO community, but at the same time they don't believe in any of it. So why are you even worried about it? Now, I know that there are some people out there who are, pretty intelligent, and they find fun in attacking the flat earthers. I think that's just a waste of time. I mean, why would anybody want to waste their time doing that? I have no idea. So anymore, going forward, right? I just think when you're confronted with these people, whether it's online or in person, right, and they tell you, well, there's just not enough evidence, or I don't believe in that kind of stuff, and you just agree with them. Well, that's so anymore. Going forward, I'm going to be, you know what? That's okay. It's okay that you don't believe it. That's perfectly fine. I think you should, stay that way for the rest of your life. I think it's perfectly fine that you don't believe it. That's how you handle it. Or either that, or you don't respond to them at all, right? And you don't even just look at them with a blank expression and just, I mean, what's the point? What's the point in talking to these people? It doesn't make any sense to me at this point. Like I think it's time that we take this to a different level now. We need to start trying to figure out what are these creatures doing, right? Is there anything to prevent them from abducting people? All those, there's a lot of different things we should be talking about rather than debating with debunkers who just for some reason can't get it through their thick skulls that there is something here. They just keep lying to themselves along with the people who follow them. It's just like some sort of a stupid, idiotic game to keep the status quo because they don't want to take the next step, right? That's all it is. I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, if somebody out there says something really terribly stupid, then it needs to be addressed sometimes, I guess. But for the most part, there's no point in debating with these people anymore. There really isn't. I know there were some people who talked about, hey, we're just going to start blocking these people, so they don't get the attention that they crave. That's fine, but don't even bother responding to them. Just leave them go. I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I get in back and forth with some of these people. What's the point, really? I mean, it's like arguing with somebody who's really stupid about the world in which we live. So what's the point? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just going to, any more moving forward, I'm just going to be, patronizing to them, Yeah, it's okay. It's okay that you don't believe. Hey, that's fine. That's fine. Hey, if you think if you think those kids out in the aerial school, if you think that somebody came all of a sudden in the morning and put on a puppet show for them, that's perfectly fine to believe in that. That's perfectly fine. Hey, if you don't believe in the Vegas alien case, if you don't believe those people, right? And if you don't believe the creatures that we found in that video are real, that's okay. You don't have to believe in it. It's okay. It's okay. Hey, if you don't believe Lonnie Zamora, that police officer from Socorro, New Mexico back in 1964, if you don't want to believe that he actually saw a craft with alien creatures, right? And he saw it taken off then. That's okay. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe it. It might have been a hoax. Yeah. You know what? It might have been a hoax. Go ahead. Maybe you should think about that. Think about that, right? So don't worry about it. Yeah, it's okay that you don't believe this stuff. So that's how we probably should deal with these people. Just treat them like imbeciles. Obviously they want to be treated like imbeciles, so we have to, patronize them, talk down to them because they're obviously not living in reality. So anymore, just yeah. If you don't want to, hey John Greenwald, if you don't see aliens in that video that I showed you, that's okay. That's okay. Go home now. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay. There's nothing there. Don't worry about it, John. Yeah, you're right. That's how we should be dealing with these people. They're the ones who are crazy. They're the ones who are crazy, right? Not us, right? They're the ones who are denying the reality of the situation. And it just, I'm thinking about that last podcast, talking to Malcolm Robinson, talking about that case. I mean, from 1979 in the woods there in Scotland. I mean, come on. I mean, obviously, that's what happened. The guy came across something that was a non-human intelligence craft, right? And that's what it was. That's the answer. It's not supernatural. It's natural. It's part of this existence we're all living. We're all part of right now. That's what it is. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to start off today's show. But I wanted to also talk about. I did a show 2 podcasts ago. I was talking about the buzzing sound, the humming sound that some people hear, including myself, when I had my encounter with one of these beings back in 1977. That sometimes people hear, and I heard it myself. And I received a lot of comments about that, and I want to go over some of those comments today. I actually received. First off, I want to go to an email I received. And I thought this was interesting. And, okay, I'm going to pull it up on the screen here. It says, now this guy's using a pseudonym, Ted, he calls himself. That's not his real name. I know what his real name is. It was in the email, but he wants to use this. Now, before we even get into this, actually, I should say, okay, just for people who didn't see that episode, when I was talking about those sounds, those weird sounds, the buzzing sound that I heard, you hear, like, when I woke up, and I had this alien encounter back in 1977. I wake up in the middle of the night. There was this humming or buzzing sound that I heard, and it lasted for the entire 20 minutes of this episode, right? And then I conked out somehow. And there's lots of other people who have heard this sound too when they come in close proximity to aliens or when they get abducted or the Ariel School incident. I brought that up. There was some of the kids heard this sound during that whole event. And so there's other people, and I actually, there's other people out there who have, either in comments that have been placed on YouTube or Spotify, as well as an email I received here. There's other people out there who have experienced this sound as well, including, we're going to start off here with Ted and see what he had to say about it. He writes, hello, my name is Ted, that's a pseudonym, and I want to respond to the episode regarding the sound you heard in the bedroom. I too have heard that sound. The real sound I heard has a little more of a heartbeat cadence to it, but the one you made is quite close. The sound also reminded me of a sound effect in the 1982 film The Entity whenever the character Carla gets attacked. And then he provided a link to this clip from this movie called The Entity that came out in 1982, and I listened to it, and that's what he says his sounded like. Now, mine did not sound like what I heard in that clip from The Entity, and I did in that episode that I when I talked about this, I did. I tried to present a recreation of the sound I heard. I mean, it's definitely not exactly right, but it was as close as I can get it. But anyway, continuing. He goes on, he says, the sound effect from the movie did not sound exactly like what I heard, but it had the same cadence, as if the person who created that also had the same experience, but I digress. For years, I thought of what I am about to tell you as sleep paralysis. It had all the classic symptoms, seeing shadow figures, not being able to move, being terrified, feeling like I'm actually awake, etc. Anyway, this happened to me 3 times within a few months before it escalated. The first time I was lying in bed and I heard that sound. I also heard and felt the sensation of hundreds of small footsteps moving rapidly. It was the same sound as a cat who gets the zoomies, but multiplied many times over. I would see a dark figure in my peripheral vision, hear some guttural sounds, and then I would be awake. It was strange and frightening. Being a non-religious atheist, I never considered any kind of spiritual explanation, so I went online to see what I could find, and my research led me to sleep paralysis. That gave me a sense of relief that although it was by no means pleasant, it was fairly normal. It happened again, and my scientifically inclined mind told myself to do what others have done in this situation. Move a finger, say something, and it should bring your body out of sleep paralysis. It worked. Now I went from being afraid to being empowered on how to deal with this. A few months later, the escalation happened. Now, before we continue with and we talk about the escalation here, I just want to point out that I want to sort of talk about sleep paralysis. When I was younger, I used to have sleep paralysis sometimes. I remember maybe 4 times, 5 times, something like that. It was several times. I didn't know what the hell was going on. You can't move. For people out there who had sleep paralysis, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very scary. I didn't know what it was when I was a kid. In fact, I didn't know what it was until I grew up. That's something totally different from what I experienced when I had that alien encounter. When I had the alien encounter, I was perfectly mobile. I was able to move, no problem whatsoever. I was wide awake and I was moving. I just did not want to pull the blanket down and look into the face of the creature that was standing right beside the bed. But I was able to move, so I wasn't paralyzed that time. So wasn't suffering with sleep paralysis. But I did, on occasions I did have sleep paralysis. You would wake, I'd wake, I'd be, I don't know, you'd be falling, sometimes you'd be falling asleep, sometimes it'd be just waking up, or I'd wake up and start falling asleep again, and then it would kick in, the sleep paralysis, and your mind's awake, but your body can't move. It's basically the opposite of sleepwalking. The wires get crossed in your mind, and so basically, sleepwalking occurs when your brain's not operating properly at that moment. Basically, the way we are designed is there's things in our brains that prevent us from sleepwalking. And then there are things that prevent us from moving when we're asleep. But sometimes those wires get crossed, and you'll have someone who ends up sleepwalking, and they're basically acting out a dream because they're moving around. Or the opposite is sleep paralysis. Your brain thinks you're still asleep, but you're really not. Your mind's awake. Your conscious is awake, but you can't move because you're paralyzed because part of your body thinks that you're still asleep and you're not. And I remember, that's what I would do. It would be my little pinky. I'd try to move it, and then finally it would move, and then you'd come out of it, and you'd be like, yeah, right. It sucked. I mean, it was scary. And some people say when they have sleep paralysis, they feel like there's a presence there. The only thing that I remember, sometimes I would hear pounding on the wall, like I would hear things, like I would have that sort of hallucination to go along with it. And that's probably about it. Well, other than that, it was just, I couldn't move and I was paralyzed, and it just sucked. And you'd finally come out of it. Sometimes you'd come out of it and you think, thank God. And then you start falling back to sleep again. Next thing you know, you're back in the sleep paralysis mode, and you got to go through the whole thing again. So it happened to me a few times when I was a kid, but I never had any encounters with aliens while I was paralyzed during those sleep paralysis episodes. They were just sleep paralysis episodes, and that was it. But anyway, continuing here with the article from TED. I'll pick up right where I left off. He said, a few months later, the escalation happened. I randomly had a dream that a beautiful woman was on my bed. Just as I was able to process what was happening, I instantly went into the sleep paralysis state. Only this time I felt myself being dragged off my bed by the ankles. I felt my forehead hit my dresser and it hurt. I was wrapped up in my blankets, being dragged out of my bedroom into my living room. Only I wasn't scared, I was angry. I had this feeling of, how dare this thing come into my own house and do this to me? I was a high school wrestler and I instinctively sat up and reached for whatever was pulling my legs, and sure enough, my hands encountered mass. Upon this, my body went into muscle memory. I was able to grab the entity, pick it up, and slam it on the floor just like in amateur wrestling. Then proceeded to beat it mercilessly, ground and pound style. After a few seconds, I woke up again on my bed with a feeling of having no more fear regarding my sleep paralysis. I did not have the experience again for around 6 years. When it did happen again, I heard the sound again. I was not able to talk because of the paralysis, but I could think. I said in my head, if you try, thinks I will beat the blank out of you just like last time. I am not afraid. Then the paralysis passed and I woke up. This happened a couple more times with the same result. Another time I felt a presence jump on the bed, but I was wide awake, and when I got up to investigate, I saw a brief distortion in the hallway before having no perception of anything out of the ordinary, and it hasn't happened since. In conclusion, until I started listening to your show, I wrote these experiences off as sleep paralysis, but now I wonder if there's something more to this than that. Too many of your stories and other people's encounters describe too many similarities. Also, this advice may help others who experience this. Based on my experience, these aliens, if they are aliens, are no physical match for us. This thing I attacked was as helpless as a child once I got my hands on it. It was not physically strong at all. I wonder if it would be similar to a situation where a zookeeper was working with a tranquilized chimpanzee and it suddenly woke up and started fighting back. The zookeeper, although immensely smarter than the chimp, would stand no chance whatsoever in a physical altercation. So if I have a message for your listeners, it is to show no fear and think aggressive thoughts. They may move on to other targets. Ted. Now, I thought that was a very interesting email message for sure, and a very strange experience, I must say. And there's some people who sometimes when they encounter the creatures, the creatures do paralyze them, and this happens in broad daylight sometimes. And there's a lot of cases like that where people inadvertently seem to run into these creatures in the woods or something. The next thing you know, they're pointing some sort of a device at them, and the next thing you know, they can't move for like 15 minutes until the creatures get in their craft and fly away. I mean, how many stories I've talked about? So many of those kinds of stories on this channel over the last few years. And there's other people too that talk about these beings coming in their bedroom, and it's like sleep paralysis, but it's not, because there are beings there, and they're taking their victims onto the craft and performing medical procedures on them. So sometimes people do get paralyzed by these creatures, and it has nothing. And that, I believe, has nothing to do with sleep paralysis. That's a whole different phenomenon, and that's what it seems like might have been happening here with Ted, who claims that not only was he having these weird encounters, but he actually was able to beat one up. And his advice, if these things are coming after you on a regular basis, think aggressive thoughts, and maybe they'll leave you alone after time. And that maybe that's all we really have against these things. I really don't know. But see, the problem is, I know that these things are happening. I know that a lot of these people that talk about alien abductions, I know it's real because I had something similar happen to me, and I know in my head it was real. So I know that these other people had these kinds of experiences as well. Okay, now we're going to move over to some of the comments I received on Spotify. Let's see here. This was from Ryan551. He said he heard a very similar sound, but deeper, during his experience with a three-fingered being in my bedroom around 1988. So Ryan said he had an experience too, and his the creature that was in my room when I was a kid, three fingers, it had 3 digits, and it wasn't. Let me tell you something. Anyone who ever saw one of these creatures, at least one of their hands, right? You know that this, whatever this is, they're definitely not human. This is not a human hand whatsoever. It was completely, I don't even know. I mean, looks like something out of a horror movie. That's what it looked like to me. Let's see. Here was one from Terrence Finan. He says, "Me too. A deeper noise, a lot like a generator, but no contact. No contact. But what they've done to me all is a download file for them to take information." Oh yeah, there was a couple of people that commented on this. This JEM Recycling says, "You've already gotten the download, Jim. Now you're part of the crowd control group. Better get that hypnotherapy session scheduled now." Now, what I was talking about there was, I was mentioning Dr. Carla Turner's book, Into the Fringe. In that book, I found, I mentioned that during that previous show. She, during one of her abduction experiences under hypnosis, she remembered that she heard this buzzing sound. And when she asked these shadowy aliens what it was, they said they were putting something up. In that episode, I was saying downloading. I should have been saying uploading. They were uploading information basically into her mind. And that would come in handy later. And I'm wondering, is that what happened to me? Do I have information uploaded into my mind? I don't know. Who knows, right? Maybe it's aliens. Maybe that's the way aliens communicate. And I woke up in the middle of this communication, and they're communicating with each other. I mean, they seem like some of these creatures, right? They seems like they're just like insects on this planet, right? Maybe that's what they sound like. It was like a sound like bees, buzzing. Except it really wasn't. That's hard to describe. You'd have to hear it for yourself to understand what I'm talking about. But I don't. Who knows? We just don't know. Janet wrote, "Love your podcast. Don't think you are doing what they may have told you to do." She pushes in a question. She goes, "Don't you think you are doing what they may have told you to do?" Well, so basically what Janet's saying, so maybe that sound I heard, the communication I had with those creatures when I was a kid, maybe now this is what they were instructing me to do this. Maybe I'm doing this podcast because they instructed me to do it. I don't think that's the case. But that's what she is suggesting. She goes on, "Be part of the disclosure. When the entire world finds out about this, millions will be looking for answers, trying to learn everything we've learned, and your podcast has helped me so much understand the phenomenon. Do you think the phenomenon is different than the Chris Bledsoe phenomenon? I feel like his is separate, but the government sure wants to know every move he makes. Just wanted to ask." I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, for all we know, maybe the Chris Bledsoe stuff is totally divorced from other people's experiences. I don't know. Maybe there's multiple different kinds of species of aliens here screwing around with us. I just don't know. I don't know what to say on that one. And then Me says, "A one world government controlled by a power here to save us. What does that sound like?" It doesn't sound good, does it? Anyway, shooting over to some of the comments I received on YouTube. Let's see. There was one from Lucas4759. He says, "I remember 15 years ago one night, I suddenly woke up and I couldn't move. I was lying on my stomach and felt like some invisible forces pushing my head into the pillow. I couldn't lift my head and turn around. I was facing the wall in my room. I just remember a buzzing sound and a blue light on the wall. Maybe it was sleep paralysis, but I can't explain the blue light in my room because at that time I was living in an apartment on the 7th floor, so there was no way it was light from the street or cars." Yeah, that's like I also talked about an experience when I was even younger, when I was 5 years old. I don't know, some things I'm not sure about, and Lucas apparently here is not sure whether this involved aliens or whether it was just a regular old sleep paralysis episode. Let's see. Yeah, now somebody here, one of my subscribers, Stu Pot, said YouTube is deleting my comments and replies. I don't know what's going on with that, folks. Sometimes there's been a couple other people too where this is happening, where people's comments are being deleted, and I don't know why, and they seem like they're harmless comments too. I don't know what to say about it. I have nothing to do with it. I have it set so all comments are accepted. Okay. Let's see here. Stone Neils says, if any of you have done DMT, you know the sound of that buzzing and feeling of information download, or it might be upload, that I could never tell, but definitely some information transfer goes on. Now he's talking about a a drug called DMT. I've never done that before in my life, so I have no idea. Okay, Rusty Grunner says, you probably have had abductions you don't even remember as well. So sorry, Jim, this happened and weren't believed by your family. Yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, yeah, I could have been abducted. I don't remember. All I know is that there was something in the room and it lasted for 20 minutes while it was there. And that was in 1977. Has it happened since then? Could have. I don't know. Just don't remember. I have to wonder how many people out there does this happen to and they have absolutely no idea. I mean, maybe it was all by chance that I just seemed to wake up that night, and that was it. That, for most people, it doesn't happen probably. I mean, everybody else in my house was conked out the whole time. They weren't waking up despite how loud I was screaming. So you have to wonder how many people does this happen to? For all we know, it might be happening to everybody. Bill Davis writes, the failure of scientists to take this phenomenon seriously is just awful. We are not prepared if anything bad is going to happen. No, we're not. Particularly the scientific community is not prepared. I mean, they're going to be scrambling in the event that something ever big all of a sudden happens with these creatures. I don't know if we're going to be ready for it. I mean, the control group will probably be ready. They'll have answers maybe for themselves, but what about for the rest of the world? Who knows? I don't know. Jonathanos says, he writes, when humans capture, tag, and measure wildlife, it can be violent, disorienting, and painful. The way people justify the process is by viewing it as necessary to help the species. They view that captured animal as contributing to the effort, and the animal has an important future purpose after being tagged. I think these abducted people are part of a multi-generational study that observes people over their lifespan, and every abductee is valued for their unconsented contribution of our species. Many of these abductees that were told of their future importance end up dying before they ever find out what their purpose was supposed to be. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. We are. I mean, I think that's what could be happening here. We're basically getting treated like animals. We're like basically just the way we treat wildlife. That's how they're treating us. They look at us as wildlife, and basically from their point of view, we probably really do look like wildlife the way we treat each other. Spore001 says, I was watching the Y-Files episode, and this guy said him and his wife was startled by a female being standing next to the bed, and the hybrid told him to go back to sleep. It was just a dream, and that's what they did because they were like, oh, maybe it's just a dream, and they fell back to sleep. You would think you would startle awake, but not with these beings. Yeah, now, if anybody, in any other situation, if you were to wake up and there's someone standing in your room in the middle of the night you never saw before, you're going to be doing more than just falling back to sleep. You're going to be getting up and trying to kick them out of the house and question them on what the hell are you doing here. But with these beings, they don't allow that to happen for in some of these cases, except in the case of Ted, who finally got to beat one of them up. And you would have to think, I mean, when you think about the description of the gray alien, these short little 3 foot tall, 4 foot tall at best, real skinny, like, I mean, they would have to take all kinds of precautions, against us. I mean, think about the damage, a human being, even like, just to say you weren't even that strong. I mean, the way these things are apparently built, I mean, it wouldn't take much to injure them. So that's one of the other things you have to keep in mind. Julian YT says, I heard a similar sound when I was falling asleep a few years ago, but I didn't fall asleep really. Instead, I saw my sight was in a vortex, which upon closer inspection was made up of many different triangle shapes spinning around like I was looking at the inside of a horned torus vortex shape type thing. The sound, it was like someone had a power drill or vacuum electric motor next to my ear, etc. It went whiz, hum, and kept going, and I looked up at all the triangles whizzing around. They looked a bit like migraine R's in color, white but made up composite of all other colors, but it was a mesh of triangles. I was worried I was going to be sucked into that disorienting vortex, so I said a prayer because I felt like I wasn't supposed to be seeing this. I wasn't sure what this was all about. Just I felt, nope, didn't want to go there. Then I suddenly became normally awake. Up until now, I put it down to hypnagogic or exploding head syndrome with trippy phosphenes visuals. I thought maybe I had caught the sight and sound of my eyeballs rolling in REM sleep. But now I'm not so sure. Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, some of these things could be just something going, what you're described there, but it could be aliens too. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because they're really here. We know they're really here, despite all of these voices all around us, right? They're saying, no, no, there's nothing to this. You have no proof. You have no proof. We don't need them to tell us we have no proof when you know you have the proof yourself, right? So, like I said, next time you get confronted with a non-believer, just say, that's okay. You could go believe what you want to believe. It's okay. Just be condescending and patronizing, and they might get mad, but just keep doing it until they just go away. Let's see here. The new Miles Copeland says that sound is creepy, bit like the film Vivarium about the humans bringing up an alien in an alternative maddening dimension, TV programming subconscious messages. Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know. Are they putting some sort of information into people's brains, uploading information into people's brains, like apparently what they told Carla Turner back in the late 80s? I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it could be just them talking. I mean, who knows? Maybe they're trying to use that sound to make me pass back out, and the hand was going like this, like, don't get up, don't look at me, you want to see this. Maybe that's what it was all about. Who knows? We just don't know. Here's all we do know is there's something here. That's what we do know. Okay. Black Bass says, I'm thinking instructions are given by light. The buzzing is more like a wobbly vibration. The thin blue blanket had so much static energy in it. I had a thin blue blanket over my head that night, and I could see through this thin blue blanket, and I could see this creature standing right by the bed, and I really saw its hand there. Shadow Walker said, that is the sound, but it is deeper. It has hard bass, and also it is like booting up. It is not constant. It gets more and more intense. At least it was so in my case. And while that is happening, white flashes jumping left and right in front of the eyes while the eyes are closed. So here's Shadow Walker heard this. See, there's a lot of people here who've experienced this sound. It's not just me. So there's another one. Shadow Walker said he was experiencing something like this too. And I listened when I played that sound, that recreation. I thought about it. Again, and I made that a while ago. Actually, I think it was 3 years ago when I first published that or included that in a show. And but this one, when I listened to it again and I played it in that episode when I was talking about this, I was thinking afterward that it was somewhat deeper too. I thought what I heard was deeper. There's absolutely no way anyone would ever be able to recreate exactly that sound that I heard. I mean, it was just so creepy. I can't even begin to tell you. Utah John says this: the Zamzumim were a race of giants in the Bible who made a buzzing sound as described in the Hebrew word zimzum, which means buzz or hum. They are identified with the Rephaim and may be the same as the Zuzim mentioned in Genesis 14:5. The Zanzuzim were associated with the ancient belief that the spirits of the dead made a buzzing sound. So Utah John has a biblical explanation potentially here for us. And our Heinen 509 says, I also heard a vibration sound, but not so loud. Maybe it is caused neurally by them interfering from another dimension next to us. I don't know. The one that that was near me was interfering physically. There was something physical in the room, and the sound was there with it. That's how there was a physical being in the room. I saw it clearly. And there was, through the thin blanket, there was something standing by the bed, and I could hear this sound the whole time. Let's see, was it Glitch They Orky says, this happened to me 3 weeks ago in Gainesville, Texas at a hotel. Okay. Robert Love says, I heard that sound back in 1997 during a series of events. It came with an image that I used to verify what I'm seeing sometimes. Alien invasion has scary connotations, but really, maybe they're good at government? Then what if it's the case that they are the reason we exist as we do in the first place? What if this genetic meddling is how we came to be something more intelligent than an amoeba? What if this is just our next level? Yeah, some people say that that it sounds like they may have. Some people claim or believe that maybe they're the ones who put us here. Robert Deal said that sound was more like a helicopter, more over a beehive. Let's see here. Black Bass also says, I was abducted in junior high school. Before that, had a shadow being watch over me sleeping in the doorway of my closet until I yelled at it to leave. Many years I didn't sleep in my bedroom. Couch sleeping was common. Yeah, I could understand why. Because I could tell you that incident for me was very, very scary. I'll tell you what was also bad about it was I felt really lonely after it happened because, of course, like I've always stated, my mom and dad didn't believe me. They thought it was just a dream when I knew for a fact that it was not a dream. There was something really there in the room, and I knew that nobody was going to believe me. I just knew it. And it's just a very lonely place to be, and you just have to deal with it yourself because, I mean, who are you going to turn to when you're like 9 years old? I mean, who are you going to ask? Hey, do you ever have a creature in your room and makes a buzzing sound, like an electric transformer or bees? I mean, who's going to help you in 1977 yet? Nobody. Let's see here. EcoJar 3047 says, I have heard this sound before, but for me it was like my brain was being electrocuted, like my head was full of angry bees. It was painful. It woke me up, but I couldn't open my eyes or move a muscle. I thought maybe I was having a stroke or something in my sleep. It finally faded away and I was able to move my body. My heart is racing, and yes, it was about 3 or 4 a.m. I live in the middle of nowhere by myself, so I'm kind of a prime target. I often have dreams of people being beamed up in the sky in public, and we're all running for our lives, scared, but when it catches us, something lets us know it's okay and we're not going to die. I had a strange dream last night that I was staring into a teal force field or wormhole, and I kept telling myself, wait, the edge of this force field was white last time. Why is it green on the edge this time? But I don't remember a first time. Till now, there is something familiar about this force field and I can't move. I have sleep paralysis often, sometimes one time a week, sometimes one time a month. I'm starting to believe I might have been abducted a few times. Where can I go to try the hypnosis thing? Or can I discover things on my own by meditating or something? I also had a dream a long time ago that a shadow being was forcing me to choke. I freed my right arm and reached for its neck to choke it and fight back. My girlfriend at the time woke me up. She heard me making weird choking noises and saw me leaning over the bed, reaching out with my same arm and my hand in a choking shape. It freaked her out, but not because she saw what I saw. I'm starting to wonder if it was a dream at all and our memories are altered. Some of this is probably just nothing sleep paralysis related. But I've seen a craft too when I was driving and stone cold sober. It was dark, pitch black, blade-like fanned parts on each side. It was bigger than a house, totally silent, and slowly floating just above the treetops and power lines. I don't know. It could be a mixture. Could be a mixture of things. You might be having, some of it could be dreams. Some of it could be encounters with these beings. We just don't know. Randy McKernan says, consider how a modem works. Modulating data onto a baseband signal frequency has the effect of creating a buzzing sound. I imagine that an electromagnetic process of pushing information into a human brain's memory cells could have the side effect of the human perceiving a buzzing sound. It's all fascinating as long as it's happening to someone other than myself. Yeah, it's better to hear about these stories than have it happen to yourself, I can tell you that. Here was also something else from Spore. He says, I decided to ask ChatGPT about your title, and this is what it said. Electromagnetic buzzing. Instead of traditional sound waves, their buzzing might involve vibrations at electromagnetic frequencies, allowing direct brain-to-brain communication in a way that resembles radio transmission. If aliens were using buzzing-based electromagnetic neural induction to implant thoughts, it would be incredibly advanced, far beyond human technology. But if they've mastered physics in ways we haven't, it might be as natural to them as speaking is to us. So that was very interesting. And of course, the name of this episode was Buzzing Sounds Reported by Abductees Could Be Alien Method to Upload Instructions into Their Minds. And it could be a lot of other things too, though, as we're talking about here. But this is what ChatGPT told Spore about it, what it might be, and I think that's pretty interesting. Dan Lambert says, I'm still connected to these gray aliens. Your sound is close, but it pulses every half second. I like the little grays. I think they're cool. So this guy doesn't have any problem with them. Let's see. Bowden to Karna. See, I have trouble reading these names, and I'm sorry about it. It says, Bow Down to Carnage Halo 247 says, I heard it too. Your channel was the first time I've heard anyone else describe this. Mine was sleep paralysis, 3 beings floating above, prayed, and they dipped out. So he's saying that he prayed and the creatures disappeared. Billy says, congratulations on the Super Bowl, Jim. Yes, I know this is not UFO related, but let me tell you something, folks. When your team wins, my team is the Philadelphia Eagles, and when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs the other night on Sunday night, my God, that was fantastic. Fantastic. And then Fountain Blue says, the sound reminds me of the one which was recorded by American policeman in March 17th, 1981 as Sergeant Russell Yoakum of the St. Helens, Oregon Police Department of the flying UFO craft near him. It's available here in many videos. Yeah, there was a craft that somebody recorded, a police officer back in Oregon back in the early 80s, and I'll see if I could find a link for that, and I'll leave it in the description somewhere. I don't know if it's copyrighted or anything, but that was a very strange sound. But that's not. I heard that sound. I heard that before, but that's not the sound that I heard that night when I encountered that creature in the room. Let's see. MG9945 says the idea of implanting instructions into abductees and experiencers is really interesting. Dr. Michael Masters has had this happen to him. They asked him if they could implant or download something in his brain abstractly, not a literal, tangible thing, and they told him he would not be able to access this information until a time in the future when it becomes relevant. It's crazy putting all these pieces together from all different places. They seem to have nothing to do with each other, these stories, but then building on top of these stories, things start to come together in really incredible ways. I totally agree, MG, they do, and that's why we need to keep talking about this, and that's why I really do think we need to just start ignoring these naysayers. I mean, again, it's like arguing with, flat earthers. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. Esoteric Fleet Mechanic says, I've heard that sound so many times. Other sounds too. Just recently, my blankets were ripped off me too. Hex Nottingham says, currently halfway through J. Allen Hynek's book, The UFO Experience. A whole lot of buzzing and humming with close encounters. Kind of like in Frank Edwards' book. Yes, I've read Frank Edwards' book, but I didn't read this Hynek book. I never got around to reading that one, which is criminal on my behalf. I should have been reading that. Echo Jar also says, I think the sound is scrambling our memories if we woke up during an abduction, implanting a dream that makes no sense while erasing the truth. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. There's something to scramble up our brains so we don't remember. Maybe that's what they're trying to do, but it wasn't working on me at that point in time. When you're a kid, maybe you're still you're a little bit stronger. You're new to this whole existence, and they got to do stuff to you to make sure the next time they come, you don't remember. And maybe that time that was the first time they came, and they were doing something to me to try to make it so the next time they come after me that I don't remember anything. But that time I did. It's too late. They screwed up the first time. Let's see. Ray Moose 2023 says, I was doing CE5 at around 10 p.m. in a remote area in Hong Kong when I heard this. It was getting closer and closer to me, and I thought it was a drone, but there was nothing in sight. When the sound was about 15 meters away, I put out a mental thought that it was getting too scary and traumatic, and I didn't want to have contact at that time, and the sound went away. I'll never forget it. So there you go, folks. There's a lot of other people that have heard this sound in all different sorts of scenarios. And I don't know what it's all about, but it's something that we should try to figure out. Actually, one person here said that this is the first time he heard anyone talking about it. Now, it does come up in the UFO literature, but that's about it. You're right. I never found any show where people are talking about just that buzzing sound. I thought it was pertinent just to bring this up because I don't know what it's all about. There's all kinds of different things it could be. We could speculate till we're blue in the face. I mean, I'm saying in that episode I was speculating on whether they're uploading information into our brains for some purpose for the future or something. That could be it. Who knows? It could be maybe that's the way they communicate with each other. Maybe that's what it sounds like when they're communicating telepathically with each other. Who knows? Maybe it's a sound of the craft. We just don't know. But we should try to figure it out. What is this buzzing sound? We don't know the answer to this. We hear all these stories, but we don't have the answer to it. And I think we need to figure this out. The scientific community needs to get more involved and tell us, what is this buzzing sound that these aliens, that people hear when they're in close proximity to these extraterrestrial / NHI craft and or the beings themselves. That's what we need to try to do here, folks. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.